Hello learners, in this session we will discuss about the strategies to deal with the matching headings category. This is very common to deal with these categories of the questions. So how to do these categories, I'll tell you now. We have some steps we need to follow, that is some tricks that you have to keep into your mind. The first one is quickly read through the paragraph headings so you can see what they say. Many of our students, what they do not focus on the headings and they do not focus too much on the paragraph. Because of that, in a very hurly-burly situation, they write the answer. Ultimately, their answer is wrong. So my recommendation to you is quickly read through the paragraph, what this paragraph says. For that, you can use the pen and paper and you can write some key points in your particular paper about the paragraph, what that paragraph is all about. Second trick is that if you are unsure between two answers at first, put them both in and eliminate one later. It means many of our learners, they face this problem that there are two headings sometime. For example, first, 7th and 8th. There are three headings are matching with the paragraph. You have read the paragraph 1 and you feel there are three headings are matching with that. So what you can do in that case, guys, you can write three of them backside of the paragraph and go ahead with other questions. Do not waste your time. Later on, you will figure out that paragraph D answer is already accumulated with 5th one and paragraph F answer is the 8th one. So you are left with one heading, which will be your answer. That is also a trick which is useful for many learners. Number 3, watch out for synonyms. Make sure, guys, they use synonyms to confuse you. So please make sure that you understand the meaning of the paragraph. Understand which kind of words they are using up. Maybe they are using the synonyms in the heading. So read very carefully that paragraph. Next, read the starting and last part of the paragraph. Why I'm saying this? Because it's very important to read the starting line and last line of the paragraph. These are the areas where the writer will make thesis. So you need to understand these lines. However, you have to read the complete paragraph, but chances are there that starting and ending, these are the two areas where you can get the answer. Next, highlight important dates, events in the paragraph. So what you can do that when you read the paragraph, it just you don't have to go through skimming and scanning. At the same time, you can simply highlight important dates. It will be easy for you to focus there and then you can figure out the answer very easily. Ignore anything you know about the topic. Many of our learners, they face this problem because they feel what they have learned a particular chapter regarding that. They use their own sense. Guys, in this case, you don't have to use your own sense, guys. You have to find out the answer from the perspective of the paragraph. So you don't use your own sense in that. Don't look at the heading first. Before going through that, you read the particular section very carefully. Do not read the headings. First you read the paragraph, then try to figure out which heading is matching with that and make notes where that is required. Now let's discuss one question based on the matching headings. Now I'm going to tell you how to find out the headings and how to match that with the paragraph. Now you can see there is a paragraph here. The Yoruba people of Nigeria classify their towns in two ways. Permanent towns with their own governments are called Ilu, whereas temporary settlements set up to support work in the country are Eba. Although Ilu tend to be larger than Eba, the distinction is not one of the size. Some Eba are large, while declining Ilu can be small. So if you go through this paragraph, we need to match these headings. There are 10 headings that we have right now. The first one is town facilities, colonization, urban divisions, architectural home styles, types of settlements, historical foundations, domestic arrangements, city defenses, the residences of the rulers, and government buildings. Now, as per the tricks which I've given you, first what we will do, we will try to reduce these things. If first one is not matching, we need to remove it. Then finally we'll be having few. It will be easy and convenient for you to match with those headings. Now if you see here, guys, there are some key points which you need to understand. The first one is the classify, towns, permanent towns, and settlements. These are the words which are indicating answer. So starting line is very important. If we match with the first one, town facilities, If you read the complete paragraph, there is nothing mentioned about the town facilities. So this has to be removed completely. Second one is colonization. You can see in this one particular, in our paragraph, there is no information about colonizing. So there is no information about the colonization, so that remove this one as well. Then we have urban divisions. Little bit it's matching with the passage. Now you need to read detail. You keep that thing with here. So urban divisions we are keeping up for a while. Fourth one, architectural home styles. So they have not mentioned anything about the architectural home styles, so we will remove this one as well. So here I'm just marking here with we have doubt with the third one. All right. Now types of settlements. If you see this thing, yes, it's talking about settlements. There are different types of settlements. Here in the Nigeria classify their towns in two ways. Settlements, they have say, whereas temporary settlements, permanent settlements, they are talking about the settlements. So we have doubt with this one. This can be also answer. Historical foundations, there is nothing they have mentioned about the historic part. Domestic arrangements, no, there is no information about domestic arrangements as well. So remove this part. City differences, they are not talking about at all city differences. The residences of the ruler, there is no information about the residences and also rulers. So please remove it. Finally, government buildings. You can see there is no information about in the whole paragraph about the government buildings. So we have two options. Now read very carefully these two options. Urban divisions, let's talk about. The Yoruba people of the Nigeria classify their towns in two ways. Permanent towns with their own government are called Ilu, whereas temporary settlements set up the support in the road. Now, if you read this statement very carefully, it's again not talking about the urban divisions. It's just not about dividing the urban areas. They are talking about the settlements in the urban and rural areas. So you can see here that they classify the towns in two ways, permanent towns and settlements they are talking about. So temporary settlements where they are Iba, although they tend to be larger than Eba. So they are talking about this one, types of settlements. So ultimately, we have the answer this. So this is the way of finding the answer. Let's discuss one more example based on all the tricks. Here is the paragraph. In the 19th century, most towns were heavily fortified and the foundations of these walls are sometimes visible. Collecting tolls to enter and exit through the walls was a major source of revenue for the old town rulers, as were market fees. The markets were generally located centrally and in small towns, while in the large towns they were permanent stands made of corrugated iron or concrete. So guys, if you read the starting line is giving you a hint of the answer, which I've explained you before. You need to read the starting and ending lines very carefully because these are the areas where the writer will be making thesis. Now, if you see the starting line, in the 19th century, most towns were heavily fortified and the foundations of these walls are sometimes visible. This is the answer. 19th century, they are talking about the history and the foundations of the history they are talking about. So here, this statement is matching the sixth one, that is historical foundations. Here we have a paragraph. The palaces were often very large. In the 1930s, the area of Oyo's palace covered 17 acres and consisted of a series of courtyards surrounded by private and public rooms. After colonization, many of the palaces were completely or partially demolished. Often the rulers built two-story houses for themselves using some of the palace grounds for the government buildings. Now, if you see this one, I told you in the beginning, you have to read the starting and last part of the paragraph very attentively to figure out the answer. Now, if you see the meaning of the complete paragraph, it's not talking about town facilities at all because there is nothing mentioned about the facility in the town. So, remove this one. Second is colonization. So, just having one word colonization here, it doesn't mean this is the answer. You need to understand the meaning of the paragraph rather going through the words. So you have to match the meanings, not the paragraph, not the words. Third one is urban divisions. There is no information is about the urban divisions. However, if you have confusion with this one, you can just mark it for a while, then come back again. Architectural home styles. If you see the paragraph, they haven't discussed anything about the architectural home styles. Types of settlements, we have already done this thing before. Historical foundations. if you see this one, this is again not talking about historical foundations, and that's before we have got the answer of this question, so this will not be repeated. Then seventh one is domestic arrangements. If you see this thing, there is nothing mentioned about the domestic arrangements, guys. If you read the starting and last part, they have not mentioned anything about the domestic part. Now city defenses, they are again not talking about the city defenses in this one. Ninth one is the residences of the rulers. Yes, this is matching. Why? Because here it talks about the palaces. Palaces are basically for the rulers only. They used to live in the palace, and palaces are very large in size. So they are talking about the palaces were often very large. Large palace means rulers, and they are talking. If you read the last part, you know, you'll find the rulers built two-story houses for themselves using some of the palace grounds for government buildings. So you can see the residences of the rulers is the exact answer, which is matching with the paragraph. 10th one is government buildings, because they are not talking, just having the word government, it doesn't make sense that it would be the answer. Please do not match the words. You have to understand the meaning. So ultimately, if you see the answer, the residences of the ruler is the answer of this paragraph. Now let's discuss one more example based on that. We have a paragraph here. Amenities vary. In some towns, most of the population uses communal water taps and only the rich have piped water. In others, piped water is more normal. Some areas have toilets, but bucket toilets are more common, with waste being collected by a night soil man. If you read and understand the meaning of the complete paragraph, guys, you will see that. Let's discuss in the headings now. The first one is town facilities. If you see, yes, this is matching to some extent. So you go through it, just put a mark on this one, because it's talking about the town and facilities of that. Second is colonization. There is nothing mentioned about the colonization in this paragraph. The third one is the urban divisions. So they are again not talking about the urban divisions, because there is nothing mentioned about the division part. Architectural home styles. If you see this one, again, this is not matching at all. Types of settlements, we have done before. Historical foundations, we have done. Domestic arrangements is not talking about that thing as well. City defenses is again, we are not talking about the city defenses. The residences of the rulers, because they are not, we have already done before. Government buildings, no, they are not talking about the government buildings. However, this is not the only way to find out this is the right answer. There is a reason behind that. The reason is that here you can see the amenities. Amenities is the synonym of the facilities. So this is one answer. They have used it. I told you in the trick that they use the synonyms to confuse you. So understand that amenities is the synonym of facilities. So facilities vary, and they are talking about some town. Town of the, you know, in some towns, most of the population uses communal water tap. So they are talking about the town. So ultimately the answer has to be town facilities.